Everybody told me that this like. It sucks because we're asking them much. We probably.
I was repeating my entire call.
That's yours. I'm told people, there's one, because there's people out here pulling jokes. We go.
How did it go time?
So,
What do you do?
yeah, it's almost over.
Oh, great.
Yeah, go ahead, buddy. Yeah. Oh. Sorry. How's it going? Hey, Chris. Yeah, we got back on Sunday. Yeah, we've been doing okay so far. Oh, good a lot of stuff. Yeah, we're just there.
I'm not, but I love watching all the excitement.
Sometime I hear the bell, that was too. We kept getting stuck on snow this weekend. So.
Really?
We were down.
I was just the town, I know nobody looking at
Looking
Get everything so far?
so far we're.
Yeah, what is it?
We currently.
Oh, really?
We took
They put it down there.
no, I think. Yeah. He's one of the people. Yeah, and then we'll go to Texas and. Maybe.
Well, I went and not the. Hi, buddy. Happy Tuesday. Wanna. laser fast. That's really fast, guys, just so you know. I need 3 quick bucket fills. They gotta be fast because Marcus told me that if I don't give him enough spotlight time, then I'm gonna be fired. So we'll see if I come back tomorrow or not.
That's not.
Bucket fills, bucket fills. I need 3 quick ones. Come on, guys. Sean Janke.
I wanna fill Tommy's bucket. I've asked him 112 questions and he's jumping on and answering them super quick.
Look at how his timing to walk in.
Yeah.
No, wait, someone's in my name?
Just waited.
Yeah, so I wanna fill Tommy's bucket.
Tommy,
Thank you.
bucket fills, 2 more.
I'll shout out Mr. Janke over there. He was available on a weekend for a quick question, make sure we were in compliance, right?
So
So,
always in compliance.
yep. That ties with the K. Yep.
How do you get him to answer?
Text.
He has a caller ID.
Yeah.
Okay, 1 more.
I got one for you, actually.
Oh.
I appreciate you. We had a misunderstanding that went on and spent some time on the phone and got it kind of resolved. And I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, late phone call.
Thank you so much. Okay, anyone else going last time? Really quick of what's happening this week. Remember that you can, please, if you will, RSVP for Bites and Insights. But today at 1:30, we have Building Your Referral Pipeline with Lauren and Bradley, the 2 tech wizards. Wednesday, we have Bites and Insights at 2:30. This is going to be all around listing presentations. We're going to do what we did just the last time, which is we're going to do about a 20-minute panel, and then we're going to break into groups. It's really fun. It's interactive. Has anyone been to Bites and Insights and can give me like a 3 thumbs up because it was so good? Yes, I'm getting them from Justin, from Chris. Okay, good. So it is Wednesday at 2:30. Give it a little scan if you can be there. Thursday's tech training, all about customizing your website. And then next week, don't forget it's the team meeting, which is our awards, chili cook-off, and costumes. And don't worry, your office is not going to disappoint you with our amazing costumes because we always bring our A game. And if you want to cook chili, Wes is right now the reigning champion. He did knock Mr. Janke off of his chili throne.
His chili was delicious.
His chili was delicious. I even voted for his own chili over my own, and mine is really good. Mine's better than Sean's too, even though he keeps winning. But Wes is the reigning champion. So if you want to cook chili, make sure you let Lauren or Bradley know so we know who's participating in that. And that one is always a fun one. You're welcome to bring, if you've got kids at home, you want to bring them in costumes, you can. And we're going to have a fun game around our costumes. Wednesday is More Club. It's by invite only. If you're a part of the More Club, you should have gotten an invite. If you think you should be part of the More Club and you didn't get an invite, please let Lauren know. That would be the best person. And we're going to do a little pre-mastermind around walking in prepared to our business planning clinic, which I think might be our next slide. But it's just going to be a high-level conversation of what you should be evaluating today to be prepared to walk in, ready to roll to business planning clinic. Oh, look at that. Business planning clinic is November 14th at 9:30 a.m. With the one and only Marcus Green. It's in his calendar because I put it there myself.
I look really happy about it.
Business planning clinic. You look almost as happy as you did catching first fish that day. But this is imperative for your business, you guys. I think that a lot of times if we've been in business for a while, we start to like put it in our own brains that we don't need to have a business planning clinic. We know what it is. We'll do it another day. This is one time for you to sit down, go through every avenue of your business and walk out with an actual game plan. So don't forget about this. It will be all day. So just plan on until 4 or 5.
It'd be the live after Friday. It'd be the live after Friday, right? You'll carry me out. The 2025 is you need a strategy more than ever for your business. So this isn't something to pass on if you're planning on succeeding next year. Let's be in the room, let's get after it, make a game plan together.
Love it. Cookies with Santa is coming up along with the coat drive. That is September 7th. If you want to participate in Cookies with Santa, please scan the QR code and you will get some more information about it. Anything else I need to say? Okay, scan the QR code. Remember to make all of your calls in a TCPA friendly and compliant way, because you'll get a fine and it's yours, not ours. We're going to be sad for you, but we're not going to pay it. That's it. Anything else? Did I miss anything? Okay, Marcus Green is gonna do our market update today.
How is everyone?
Great.
Good.
We're
Does anyone
excited.
else have a little bit of like PTSD around Halloween? Who likes dressing up? You can always tell a lot about someone by the person that loves dressing up versus the one that doesn't. Rusty gave me PTSD on Halloween. I get a little nervous every year. So I don't know how many of you remember, but a couple of years ago, she decided the office was going to be the Golden Girls for Halloween. And I cannot get the image of me as, was I Blanche? Who was I? I was terrified. It's for some reason, if my hair is getting more and more gray, that's all I see when I look at the mirror.
Rest was spell Marcus.
Smells so natural.
It was terrifying. Find the picture and send it to Lauren and throw it in as the ending slide. That will be the treat at the end of the presentation today. As you can see, the ugliest version of Marcus you've ever seen. You're welcome. As you guys know, one of the things I like to, as I dive into the statistics and think about the market, I'm a numbers nerd, so I love what the numbers say, but I never want to get so focused on just the numbers that we forget the reason we need to understand the numbers as professional realtors in the space. It's about the story that it tells, so we understand what's going on in the market. And then how do we take that story and overlap it with the personal economy and situation of your clients? So that is the skill set piece that we have to understand. We have to understand what's going on in the market. We have to then take that story and better understand our clients and who they are and connect the two in a way that helps the client get what they're looking to get. So one of the things that I thought would be a healthy exercise for us to do is if you have a note piece of paper in front of you, I'd love for you to draw this graph out on one of the pages. And this is what I want you to focus on. There's 3 versions of you in the room today. There's you as a real estate agent. There's you as the CEO of your business. And then I think the same exercise I'm going to walk you through for your business, I think it's important for us to do it for us on a personal level as well. I want you to remember that the priorities we talk about inside of our ecosphere is God, family, then business. Business is third. We're talking about your business today, but we never want to forget that we want you to live a life by design. The whole purpose of running a great business is so that you can enjoy your life outside of the office. And so this is a little habit or formula I go through regularly in my own business and in my own roles. As I ask myself, what is the number one obstacle I'm facing right now? And I will tell you the number of calls that I get and our leadership team gets right now from agents feeling overwhelmed is the highest it's ever been. And I think a lot of that, it's understandable that we're feeling some element of an overwhelm because we're going through a big significant change both in the market and in the industry. The problem is generally when we're feeling a little bit of that angst or anxiety around what's going on in the market, we tend to group it into one big thing saying everything's a mess. Well, everything's not a mess. There's a lot of opportunity in the market right now. It's being able to break it down to say, well, everything's not broken, but really what is my number one obstacle? So as we go through the statistics today, what I'd love for you to identify is as an agent inside your business right now, what is the number one obstacle that's keeping you from succeeding at a higher level? Don't make a list of 20 things, make a list of the one thing. Is it, and work it backwards. If you don't have enough clients to work with, that's not your number one obstacle. If you're not having enough clients to work with, your number one obstacle is generating enough conversations to create the agents to work with. So I want you to identify what is the number one obstacle that you're facing inside of your business as an agent. And then it's a separate problem as what is the number one obstacle I'm facing as the CEO of my business. That may be, I've never run off of a P&L. I don't understand the market at a high enough level. Whatever it is that the number one obstacle is you as the CEO of your business. And then it's a matter of coming down and saying, all right, if I've identified the number one obstacle, what is the skill set that I'm missing that would take care of that obstacle for me? What is the number one habit that if I could form that habit, it would take care of this obstacle inside of my business? Or is there a system in place? And this is where your leadership team can really be support to you is we've built out a lot of systems. You don't have to create anything from scratch normally. Is what system could I implement in my business that would take care of this obstacle? Same thing as a CEO of your business. And then this is the same for you on a personal level. If you're feeling like your number one obstacle is on a personal level, is you have a hard time separating your business time versus your family time. Maybe if that's your number one obstacle, it's the same idea of saying, what skill set am I missing to maintain my personal life? What habit would, if I could implement that habit in my personal life, would change my personal life significantly? And what system could I implement to handle that? So the reason I'm throwing this up there is we're going to talk a lot about the statistics. We're going to get some ideas from you and where you're feeling friction in the marketplace. But I wanted to lay the foundation of our conversation with that today, which plays into a recent blog post I put up. And if you don't get my blog, please go to thewholeenchilada.biz and join the network, and you'll get this blog post coming out weekly. This is, I think through every week something that, based off the conversations and questions I get from agents of where those friction points are, and I write something out on it. So if you want to get that, this 2 weeks ago, I wrote this one called, "Are you in joy or in hard?" Which some of you today will enjoy our conversation and some of you will endure our conversation. And those are the two words that caused me to think a little bit about how many people are enduring business right now and how many of you are enjoying business right now. And there's a significant different approach to learning to be in joy or in hard. And a lot of it has to do with working back to your mindset. Bonnie, we talked about that earlier, or your choices. And that's a lot of what we're going to look at today is you'll find that your brain will either start making a negative story or a positive story around the statistics. But one thing that is your job as an agent is to understand the market in its entirety. And you may have your personal opinions on it, but your job is to take that data and create a solution for your client. It's not necessarily the same solution that you would choose based on your life circumstances. And too many times we're trying to project our personal beliefs into the solution for the client instead of saying, I understand the market, now I need to understand you. My job is to guide you to the solution based on the data, not what my personal belief system is. Okay, does that make sense? So let's jump into this. I want to, you'll see that I jump around a little bit on the statistics. I really would love to open up anywhere that you have comments or questions around the market. I want to hear from you as we go through this as well. One of the things I want to start out on is talk a little bit about the number of agents in the business, because I think this is really important for us to think through as we think through our business plans for 2025. Is not only understanding how many transactions are available, but the competition that is out there. Right now is the time to elevate our skill set as an industry. Not only does the consumer demand it, they want to better understand what we do, is you got to set yourself apart from every other agent out there. Because it's interesting to me how many, because the industry has changed, because the market's changed, a lot of experienced agents make this comment to me, this is going to be awesome. So many agents are going to get out of business. The truth is a lot of agents are not going to get out of business, or the total number of agents in the marketplace are not going to diminish that much. They'll be replaced by new people coming into the industry, particularly those looking to offset a diminished income in their current profession. Ken?
Yeah, I just went to a training provided by the division last week, and they talked about that. The division said that on average, 150 agents are leaving the business every week, but 150 agents are entering the business every week. So the number is stagnant overall.
And this confirms my point that the one thing that I think is interesting is the 150 agents that are getting out, the majority of them aren't willing to do what it takes to really succeed in a tougher market. The ones that are coming into the business, some of them are coming in to make a career of this, but some of them are the ones sitting around the kitchen table with their spouse saying, we're not making enough money because of inflation. What are we going to do to offset our income? They can't go into their job at the bank tomorrow and ask for a raise because those salaries are stagnant. So what they're asking is, what can we do outside of our normal professions to increase our household income? Man, if we could sell 1 or 2 houses a year and make $30,000, we can keep our coffee habit going on. That is the conversation they're having. So this is even more important for us to elevate our professionalism, because a lot of the people coming into the industry, not to say a part-time person can't be professional, because they can, but if you're not doing this full-time and really putting your mind into it and understanding the market and following on a regular basis, you will not stand out as a professional, and the consumer is watching closer than ever of what value you bring to the table. Okay, so it's interesting to see this. We did see a little bit of a dip coming into it. I think we're going to see this stagnant, and to Ken's point, We may even see this increase because inflation is still in play, which I'll show you a little bit later. And this really what it trickles down to is we track the number of agents in the industry and we track the number of closed transactions. In a purely democratic world, it'd be easy because we just take the total number of transactions divided by the total number of agents and split them up evenly. But guess what would happen if we did that? None of you would make enough money to make it worth your time. There's not enough transactions to split up democratically. And that's why there's some people in this industry that make over $1 million a year, and some people spend money to maintain a license and don't get one transaction a year. They lose money. They have the same license, same opportunity, but for some reason, there's this huge chasm in the amount of money someone makes, and it all comes down to this value and skill set. If you look at this, I think it's interesting to look at the average size per agent nationwide is 4.1. And if you look at the Utah Association of Realtors, it's less than that. You're coming in at about 3.84 transactions. And an average commission of $10,000, that's $40,000 a year. So it's interesting to me to see what that looks like. So the point I'm making with this is part of the approach for this coming year has got to be to reevaluate your value proposition beyond I've got access to the MLS, I've got access to contracts, and we're going to celebrate hard at the closing table. Like we've really got to think through how to crush value. And one of the biggest things I want you to take away of in walking into our business planning clinic is the transactions that you do in 2025, the value you bring to that transaction should start today. Not in July of next year when they say we want to list our house. The value you bring to that transaction should start today. And so as we're looking at statistics today, you should be looking for what is the story that I need to get out to my consumer now that's a value add that's going to trigger a domino effect of thought process and value over time to when it comes time to July, it's an easy solution to say, oh, Marcus has been giving me information and value now for 7-8 months about this transaction, and now it's time. Does that make sense? Also interesting to look at this with the total market volume. The last time, if you look at the total market volume projected for 2024 is 2.24 billion. Last year was low, but if you look back, like we're getting back to a higher number of transactions. But if you look at the 2023 volume on average across the board, and then NAR count, particularly back here before the recession, as NAR count was high, it dipped through the recession, it got to the highest it's ever been, and it's maintaining high. But the amount of volume going on is gonna start creeping up, but not getting back to 2021, probably for a couple of years, depending on what rates do, which we'll talk about. I wanted to start here for a second and just give a snapshot of Utah specific. You'll notice as we talk about the statistics today, I'm going to go back and forth between Utah and the US. And then I'm also going to break it down into Weber-Davis County because it's interesting to see how Weber-Davis County are reacting inside the state of Utah right now as well. This is Utah, the Wasatch Front MLS statistics in general, which is, there's a couple markets that have their own MLSs. Those markets are not included in this. This is the WFR MLS. These columns here, I want to see what's happening in July, August, September, and as you know, we're in October right now, so you don't have those statistics. And then these three columns show us year to date. And what I'm looking for are patterns here. So if we look at the new listings, it was interesting in July of this year, all of a sudden we saw a big spike in listings compared to last year. So you can see in July, we took 5,271 new listings as opposed to 2023, 4,763. So an uptick of 10%, which is a good indicator that things were going to pick up. More listings were coming on the market. But it was interesting how we reacted in August. August dipped down where we were actually 2.3% behind where we were the year before, and then flattened out in September, which was interesting. Year to date, because we saw a strong up to July, year to date, we are up 10.5% in new listings coming on the market. Now, normally we would say, because just if I was looking at that one statistic, I would assume that the problem we're having in our market is not the actual problem we're having, because having more listings coming on the market is a good thing. The problem is every listing coming on the market really marketable to the buyer that's out there right now? This is not a leading question. I'm curious to hear from you because what I'm seeing is some sellers are finally coming to the table of saying, I've wanted to list and sell, but I've kind of waded through this, but I can't wait any longer. I need to get something on the market, but I want the pricing from 2 years ago. And so they're saying, you're giving actual data saying, we should list it at this. And they're saying, but what about this price over here? And we're saying, okay, well, let's start there. And then what's happening with days on the market? Days on the market are significantly up. Now, we can break this down more into segments of market because some segments of the market have maintained their value better than others. And we can break it down into sub-markets of actual neighborhoods because some neighborhoods have maintained their value better than others. But it's interesting right now, we need more sellers to come to the table with an offering that matches what buyers need right now and are willing to do. Because that's where the disconnect is we know there's a certain amount of sellers that need and want to come to market, but there's a disconnect between what they're coming to market with versus what the buyers either want or can produce on. Okay, so let's look at this. I'm going to go a little bit quicker on closed sales here. Closed sales, we were up 6.8%, down 4.2%, up 2.9%. So we're 3.7% up from where we were last year. I'm actually feeling like this is going to be lower in October, but it'll be interesting to see how this shows up for November, December. But we've seen, Tommy's going to talk about rates here in a minute. We've seen an uptick in rates, which could slow down buyer activity even a little bit more coming into the fourth quarter, and some uncertainty around politics. So we could see this slow down significantly. It'll be interesting to see. The interesting thing with this is even with more listings coming on the market, increased days on the market, generally speaking, we start to see competition and we start to see prices diminish at that point. But across the board, we've still seen price increase of 3.2%. That's interesting. We thought the government is trying to settle some of the pricing. Luke,
You don't have as many houses on the market.
when you say used to, tell me what time frame you're referencing.
You had 2,000, 3,000 houses on. We don't have that still, so we're still having that dilemma of there's more people here, so there's the dilemma is still there with shorter houses. So that's what I'm saying. We normally used to have 3,000 to 4,000 houses on the market. Still don't have that.
Yeah. And I think this is a really good point, particularly those of you that have been in business as long as Luke, or even half as long as Luke, is this idea of what used to be normal. Is that normal that we're getting back to, or is there a new normal? And that's the big question, right? Is what I do want to portray is the last couple of years were unsustainable. Right. It wasn't normal. So our market is actually, it reminds me a lot of my teenagers right now, as they're trying to figure out who they are. The market's trying to figure out who it is right now.
Because I used to have a house 90 to 106 months, and that was the normal, so I could get more buyers off that, but now I can't get a buyer off a house. It's a month, 2 months, and you can't get a buyer, 2 buyers off.
So it's to that point is, I think the market's trying to figure out who it is, which if you think about, like, again, weird example, but if I think about my teenage daughters, my daughter's trying to figure out who she is. There's things that play into that. It's who she is in her home environment, but now it's also her friends have an impact on that. What school she goes to has an impact on that. The market's trying to figure out what it is, but there's these external indicators that are also affecting it, trying to figure it out. What are interest rates doing? What are buyers thinking in Utah versus Nebraska? What are sellers thinking? What is the economic opportunity in that state? Like, all these things are coming together for it to figure out how to settle, and it will settle somewhere. And for Utah, I feel really positive it's going to settle in a positive place, but it's just going through this reconfiguration. And you can see that this one, housing affordability, which a negative number is better on this one, but you can see a positive number is better on this one, which you can see our affordability in some extent is moving back towards zero. A lower number in affordability, I'll show you a different chart on this, is worse. So we're getting more affordable to some extent, but still not where we need to be to, like, really trigger heavy buyer activity, which a couple things would have to happen. We don't see prices coming down very much. That would have to happen, or income would have to increase, or rates would have to diminish, or a combination of the three to really get us back to an affordable market, which would be a score of 100, would be a perfectly affordable market. This just graphs the US existing home sales to Luke's point. This isn't listings, but home sales, which it's always, the number of home sales is always a percentage of the homes listed. You can see projected for 2024 to end at 4.3. Last time we were at 4.3 was back in 2011, which is when we were trying to again, the market was trying to figure out who it was after a recession. So you can see 4.3, then we spiked up. We had a massive number of transactions. Always interesting to me, these years were screaming, but still not the number of transactions that were happening in 2003, 2004, based on stated income loans and some speculation there. It was interesting to me to see. Are we gonna get back to 6.1? Someday, but not for the next little bit. I think we'll settle somewhere in here, depending on what interest rates do next year. But again, the competition per transaction. The good news is the number of transactions, regardless if interest rates went to 12% tomorrow, which I'm not saying they will, even if interest rates significantly increase next year, taking a lot of buyers out of the pool, I guarantee you there will be enough transactions happening in Weber and Davis County that if at the end of the business planning clinic in a couple of weeks, I walked through the room and said, what's your goal with transactions? What's your goal transactions? What's your goal transactions? If I added them all up, regardless of how bad the market got, there's enough transactions for all of you to hit your goals next year. The question will be is, will you earn that transaction over everybody else because of value? Okay. Are you running this? Can you control that from here? Yeah. In 1 second, I want you to click this link. So I want to play this short video. I'm always hesitant to show videos in presentations because what I say is way better than what anyone else says. But they do a really good job in this video of talking about this new Utah. You guys have heard me talk about Utah becoming a new version of Utah. And I think a lot of arguments being made around the future of the real estate market in Utah is comparing it to our old market, saying like a lot of parents are saying to their kids, I bought this house for $45,000. It's going to come down at some point. Well, that was a different identity of Utah because we were such a small state with a different economy at the time. And I think this video does a really good job of talking about why we are a new Utah and what that means. This could be a great resource for you to send to your clients if you queue it up correctly and have a follow-up conversation to help them understand what is the new identity of Utah. So we played a video, Bradley.
Is human only dreams?
Oh, only painful. Gee.
That was good.
There you go.
We work with gigabytes of data every week. And when this data comes across our screens and our desks, we start to see things. We start to know when the behavior shifts. Beginning before the pandemic and in the years that follow, we've seen something we call the new. The new Utah includes 6 economic and demographic transitions that change who we are. Taken together, they represent amazing opportunities. As we wrote about and analyzed the new Utah, we became fond of the phrase keepers of the flame represents everything that's great about Utah and the life that we project. It's our responsibility as keepers of the flame to keep what we value about Utah. Also rise to challenges the new Utah. The first transition is Utah's rise from a small state to a mid-sized state. From 2010 to 2020, Utah leapfrogged 4 states to become a mid-sized state for the first time ever. A mid-sized state benefits from a lot of opportunities that a small state just can't provide. Might be more restaurants, certainly greater job opportunities, more businesses. It also means that major league sports teams will find Utah attractive. The second transition is our emergence as a state that attracts most of our growth from the outside. Net new migration, which means we have more people moving into our state than we have new births and rentals. For a good part of our history, the majority of our growth has come from ourselves, births. Our fertility rate, which is really just a measure of births, has been declining 14 consecutive years. The third transition is something that's been simmering for a long time. We're doing both. This is happening all around the country. It's also happening in Utah. As we get older, it changes our housing preferences, our transportation choices. It even changes the structure of our economy as more people consume healthcare. It's a big deal to get older. Fourth transition is that Utah becomes much more multicultural. I think it would surprise a lot of people to know just how racially and ethnically diverse Utah is. It wasn't but a few years ago that 1 in 10 Utahns were racial. Today, that number is about 1. This not only surprises people, but it's a wonderful attribute. The fifth transition is that Utah's economy is now performing at an elite level. We've always had a strong economy, but for the last 10 years, we've been among the top performing states. And this durable economy, even during the pandemic, makes it so that we are now in a position to do things with prosperous communities. We can invest in transportation, in water infrastructure, education. I like to say that a prosperous economy helps us run, also helps us in the future as we invest in our children. As our state grows, it's also getting more expensive to live. That leads us to a sixth transition, which is the unaffordable housing market. This is a real problem for young Utahns who want to enter into the housing market but can't afford it. This compromise the rest of their lives. It's going to take amazing focus. We still have a lot to do. The Gardner Institute, we shed light, not heat, but many decision makers ask us, how should they lead in the new Utah? We recommend that decision makers keep an open mind. If you felt very strongly about something a few years ago, you might want to think again in the new Utah. We also encourage decision makers to listen. In the new Utah, there's a lot of more voices. We also encourage decision makers to invest even more. We've been investing at historical levels, but with all this growth and change, we need to invest even more. We're also encouraging that decision makers invest in the things we do. We live in a divided world. The more that we do together, I think will help us in the new Utah. And finally, we encourage Utahns to unify and dignify. We can have differences over ideas, but we need to unify around our ideas. That's the spirit of the new Utah. We, as Utahns, are keepers of the flame. The flame is everything that we love about our state and the light that we project. It's now our challenge and indeed our responsibility to keep that flame burning.
What are some thoughts that came to your mind as you watched that?
That's true.
Why did dogs live longer in the 1970s?
I'm curious.
Lot of opportunity.
A lot of opportunity. Okay. What else stood out to you?
Unaffordable housing and multi-generational, people getting clear and combining families to afford things.
Okay, interesting. Yep, Dave.
Declining birth rate. Utah used to have the highest birth rate in the nation for many years. And now we're not.
Interesting. Any thoughts on why you think that is in Utah? Part of that is because our demographics changed, but I think across the country, we're gonna see that. Any thoughts why?
Because it's
Or
expensive.
cost.
The cost to raise kids is very expensive. And I think this next generation coming up is terrified about how they're gonna maintain their lifestyle they're accustomed to and take care of kids. It's gonna be interesting to see this next generation's choices on kids.
Well, and on top of that, it's really a luxury to even have one of the spouses at home. The luxury that most people don't have.
Doesn't, this is a conversation I'm having with my girls who idolize their mom, who we've been blessed that my wife's been a stay-at-home mom, aspire to be like their mom, and I'm having a conversation with them of like, that may not be the case, that may not be an option for you, right? So I'm encouraging them to learn a skill set that they could potentially work from home if they wanted to. So it's just an interesting, and that's it, thinking through that, about how do I raise my kids to think through that. So if we looked at these 6 indicators, I think it's interesting to say, can we argue that the population in Utah has significantly increased and will continue to do so?
Yeah.
And then like, I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but you could think like, what would cause the population in Utah to stop growing? It's really hard for me to come up with anything of why the population in Utah is gonna stop going unless our politics go crazy, right? But even so, that's gonna be 2 decades down the road to see the effect of politics getting people to be like, I don't want to live in Utah anymore. Net in migration, same thing. That's a big piece of it, even though the Dane's point is our population isn't growing from internally, it's growing from externally. The age of Utah significantly increased. We're going to continue to see that, particularly because people are just living longer. And there's been a lot of wealth in Utah. People are able to maintain or paid to maintain their health longer. Multicultural, I think this is a really positive one for the state of Utah, of the demographic changes of our state. We can't argue that. We can't argue that we're now an elite economy, which is only going to create more momentum behind our economy as we continue to attract people in. The big issue is affordability of what people's belief systems around affordability. It's really hard to argue against any of these other ones. The one that's hard to, the argument that tends to be lingering out there are the prices going to come down? Can we create an affordable market again? I'm of the mindset that one of my biggest fears for my own kids right now is my kids getting to the age of buying a house and a starter home being $850,000 in the state of Utah at a 6% interest rate. So like there's things like that I'm worried about more than being like, oh, someday the market will crash. My kids will be able to buy a house for $125,000 again. I don't see that future for me personally here in Utah. I'm not going to play this video, but I included the link in here when we send these slides out. You guys can watch it. This is interesting to look at the economic impacts that we're predicting from the 2034 Olympics and Paralympic Winter Games. I think is interesting to look at, particularly because Utah did such a great job with the Olympics last year. As you guys know, a lot of places lose a significant amount of money when they run the Olympics. Utah did a great job with it, and they're already forecasting what that's going to look like. And if there's a lot of opportunity latent in that, so you've got to get involved earlier. So I included this link for you guys to look at. Let's talk about, I'm going to fly through a couple of these things. What time do I have till today? 1 p.m.
Well, about maybe to like
10 to.
10 to
Until.
quarter 10 to.
Okay. Utah sales by year. So again, we've already talked a little bit about this for the country, but you can see with Utah, we're kind of following the same trend. 2024 year to date, we're up 3.7% from where we were 2023 year to date. And we're getting to the end of the year. I imagine we're not going to be much higher than this. I'm kind of anticipating a slower November, December, just with the politics and interest rates doing what they're doing. But it's interesting to look at. The last time we were at this range, again, all the way back to 2009, 2010 is kind of that range we were at, where there was more agents were dropping off here. We got dip of lower agents here. As if you looked at the number of agents, we have more agents for this number of transactions going on now, which goes back again that we've got to get significant about our value proposition. Will you click so I can? Thank you. And then this just breaks it down by quarter, which again, the thing that was a lot of times I skipped this slide in this presentation, but the thing I was looking at is this pink number of 2024 to see what was happening with home sales as we saw some momentum showing up, outpacing 2023. Until June, we underpaced 2023, outpaced 2023, underpaced 2023, barely outpaced it. I don't know what's going to happen here, but there's a chance we're going to underpace 2023 or in alignment with it. You could see last year we had a significant drop for the November, December, which is interesting. If you look back to 2021, look how strong we stayed through the winter, which there was several years in a row that all of a sudden third and fourth quarter were like blazing hot, which if you look historically in Utah, third quarter starts to slow down, fourth quarter and first quarter have historically been slow, except for that little pocket time where I guess people are still buying, let's go. But we might see that trend come back of slower fourth and first quarters. This shows for the US, we always look at the long-term trend line. If you remember, the Fed really wants to see an appreciation rate between 2 and 4%. Which is represented by the yellow line going all the way back to 1990. You can see we are outpacing that here. This were the indicators that there was going to be a crash in the market. It did show up as we anticipated. And then it was just all of federal fiscal policy was figuring out how do we get the blue line back up to the yellow line. And we overcorrected to some extent. nationwide, because we started climbing above this, and we're still above this line, even though people are talking about how bad our economy is. It's interesting to me, if you break down independently statistics about the economy, our economy is still really strong. Now, you could argue what's buoying the strength of our economy and if it's a house of cards underneath it, but the indicators are showing there's still a lot of positive growth. That's why we're not seeing these prices come down, which is what they anticipated. But it's interesting to see on a nationwide level that we're 9% above the trend, which I'm going to show you Utah's here in a minute, which is, again, federal fiscal policy is made on the entire country. They don't look at Utah specifically and say, oh, well, Utah's doing really good, so let's change the policy for Utah. They're making it based on the country in its entirety, which is great for a strong economy, but it also works against us a little bit because it's hard to slow down our economy in a market where they're making federal fiscal policy for lesser economies across the country, if that makes sense. There's pros and cons to it. Remember, it was 9%. Will you give me clickability again? There was 9% here, 67% above the trend in Utah. Now, let's go back to the video of the new Utah. When did we go through puberty in the state of Utah and become a new Utah? Like, really, like when we started converting to a really elite economy was somewhere like right in here was when we started going. So the question that I ask is, I don't think we're 67% overpriced. What I think should happen is somewhere right in here is if I was going to redraw this graph, I'd slash this yellow line somewhere in here. And I would push that yellow line up and say, we need to track a new line for the state of Utah for where we're at. Now, I do think we are overpriced to some extent. A lot of people are saying our pricing should do this. In my mind, the way I'm envisioning what's happening is if you look at that yellow line, which I should do it this way so it makes more sense. That yellow line is going like this, is I don't think we're going to see it do this. What I think is happening in Utah is this soft like falling of it. Where it's trying to figure out what can sustain it and hold it. And it's going to do this until often it hits a standard of, oh, the economy can buoy that and there's stability under that. And we're going to continue to see an increase. I anticipate that we'll continue to see appreciation across the board in Utah unless something catastrophic happens. So again, taking this into consideration for the buyers in your databases to have this conversation of it's a combination of prices today versus prices tomorrow, but also income opportunity today versus income opportunity tomorrow, and interest rates today versus interest rates tomorrow. All of those take into effect how they should be analyzing, so they're really comparing apples to apples. Because too many people are just comparing on price and not the overall price structure of a deal. If you don't have the skill set to do that, that's a skill set you need to learn ASAP, is how do you get somebody, ask the right questions to get somebody open to the comparison of beyond just pricing. And then can you forecast that out with a great lender partner like Tommy to say, let's run some numbers in both scenarios to see what this looks like. And really what it comes down to is people talk about the price of the homes, but what it really comes down for most people is what does it feel like every month to cut the check with my budget? And so a lot of that is having conversations about how do you feel about your job security? What are the opportunities in your current professional path? And then running, what would it feel like to your budget to be writing a check for X based on a purchase price of this at an interest rate of this, and to look at what affordability means to you, okay? One thing you guys have heard me say a lot of times is we talk about a macro economy, we talk about a world economy, we talk about a US economy, we talk about a state economy, we talk about a county economy, but your job is to pull out the individual person's economy. Everyone has their own economy, what that looks like. They have an unemployment rate, they have a GDP, they have a job growth rate, right? They have all these things for them personally. It's your job to pull that to the surface and say, I know the news is saying this, but let's look at your economic situation in comparison to this, okay? It's a skill set. This just shows, again, another way to look at this. Utah, the blue line versus the United States. I think this is a great graph to talk about with your clients, perhaps in conjunction with the video of the new Utah, if you wanted to share that with them. The point is these are things to create conversations. Conversations introduce new information, which give you an opportunity to ask better questions and get new knowledge on the table. But it's interesting to look at how we tracked with Utah for so long. Perhaps is this where the new Utah was born? Maybe. So it's interesting to look at what happened there. And we can anticipate, I don't anticipate these coming back in line with each other. So let's look at Davis and Weber County for a second, because I think it's really interesting. Remember when we looked at the Wasatch Front MLS as a whole, we saw that there was an increase in overall increase in listings and overall increase in closed units. But let's look what's going on in Davis County for July, August, September, and then we're gonna look at Weber County for July, August, and September. And it is interesting, what's happening in Davis County is different than Weber County. So let's look at this real quick in July. If you look at new listings in July in Davis County, up 2.5%, down year to date through July was down 2.2. Let's just focus on July because we'll get the year to date when we talk about the most recent one. So I'm just gonna talk about new listings up 2.5%, pending sales down 23%, closed units up 8.1%. August, Davis County, new listings down 7.8%. Pending sales down 9.3%. It makes sense that that number is lower because there was less listings coming on the market. And then closed sales down 20%. Davis County again, this is September, the last month we have data for. New listings down 10%, pending sales down 12%, closed sales up 5.6% from a year ago, which is interesting. Any thoughts on Davis County? What are you guys seeing in Davis County right now? Let me ask in relation to this. Is there as much development going on in Davis County versus Weber County?
No.
So it's harder to increase population in Davis County because there's less developable land, right? It's bottlenecked. Net in migration. Well, if there's less sales, if there's less transactions going on, that demographic is changing slower. So it's changing slower than other places. Is age significantly increasing in Davis County? Yeah, because people are choosing to stay there longer because they're not putting their houses on the market. And they have the ability to do so, right? They got their roots done in Davis County. The elite economy all plays into this. Affordability, because there's not as many houses coming on the market, more people staying, the pricing is tend to held better in Davis County. If you look at average sales price has gone up 3% on average. Okay, it's interesting. Let's look at that compared to Weber County. Weber County in July, new listings up 2.1%, pending down 6%, closed units down 11.3%. It was interesting to start to see the slowdown in July because we saw a pretty strong Q1 and early Q2. August, new listings up 2.2%, pending up 1.5%, but closed sales down 13.9%. So we started seeing stuff coming on the market, but the buyers weren't snagging like they were earlier in the year. Something was keeping the buyers from pulling the trigger. September, new listings up 1.4%, pending sales up 8.9%. So we saw some buyers come off the fence there based on more things being on the market. And closed sales up 5.1%. But if you look year to date for Weber County, new listings were up 6%, pending sales basically flat, closed sales down 3%. From where we were in 2023. So it's interesting to kind of see how the market's showing up in Weber County versus Davis County. If you go back to Weber County, or excuse me, Davis County, new listings down 2.5, pending down 6.8, closed sales down 6.3 for the year, as opposed to Weber County being a little bit stronger than Davis County. Any thoughts on that, though, you guys are seeing as you're working with buyers and sellers in either Weber or Davis County?
Well, I think the price point in Weber County is a little bit lower than Davis County. The thing with Davis County is that Davis County is a mile wide and 10 miles long. It's bordered by the Forest Service on the east and wetlands on the west. It's 97% built out. So things are only going to get more scarce in Davis County because of that. I attended a economic conference couple of weeks ago, and the economist, he was from Weber State, made the prediction. He said, if in 3 years, by 2028, you'll only own a house in Davis County one of two ways. One is that you're either going to inherit the house or you're going to be a millionaire. The average price of a house by 2028 will be $1 million. So
That's scary.
That's scary.
It's scary, but I
Sounds like.
I agree with that. So one, you shouldn't be like, it's one thing is to say, again, if you take your personal preferences, you could say, oh, no one should buy in Davis County because it's overpriced. But if they're buying something at 650,000 or 700,000, and you believe that statistic to be true, is that a good investment long term? Particularly if it's somebody that works in Salt Lake and doesn't want the commute to Weaver County, might be worth them stretching. You see why these statistics are important for you to know? Because your consumer, your client already has a story in their mind that is incomplete. Your job is to help them complete the story. And that was a perfect example, Ken. Thank you for sharing that. Is this idea. The other thing behind that is if people working in Salt Lake or love going into Salt Lake for cultural events, their choices are either pay a lot in Salt Lake for a nicer area, go south, which then has to go around the point of the mountain, which there's a ton of growth in Utah County, or they got to go north and then they got to get past Bountiful or Davis County really because of the land restrictions. Is that gonna push a lot of economic development in Weaver County over the next couple of years? So what is the opportunity with that? Things to look at. I'm going to include this in here too because it's important for us. When we say net in-migration, it's not only people coming from outside of Utah in, they're moving county to county. So it's really interesting to look overall what's going on. If you look at closed sales for the entire state, so it takes all the counties into consideration, it's up 3.7%, but you can see the closed sales in both Weaver and Davis County are either flat or down a little bit compared to the state because you're seeing a couple of outliers like Wasatch County. Look at people being like, let's get out of the urban areas. Same thing, you look at, I don't blame people for leaving Beaver County. But you see what the point I'm making is it's important to understand. Morgan County up 53.7%. And this to me is what's going to continue to push this development and price point in Utah is we're so far behind on product. It would be a significantly different story. It's something closer to 2005 and 2006 if we were overbuilt on product, but we are way behind on product. If you look at this, is right after 2007, we had overbuilt product, builder activity stopped, but population continued to increase, putting even more pressure on the product we need. Particularly, we need a more affordable product. We need to see some fiscal policy change that makes it more affordable to build. Land prices got to come down, density's got to go up. Something's going to happen to close this gap. So builder confidence is actually increasing. We got to build at a faster pace where we can to close this gap because across the country, we're low on product. This breaks it down by county, which I think is really interesting. This shows this column shows how many units were built between 2011 to 20. So let's look at Davis County, for example. 2011 to 2020, there were 18,660 new units built in Davis County. Right now, it's showing what we need 23,151. We got to outpace our building over the last decade, over the next decade, to close the gap on what's currently needed and what will be needed in Davis County. Weaver County, 10,000 were built. We got to build 15,000. To Ken's point, I don't know how they're going to pull that off. And if they can't pull that off, where are they going to push to? They're going to increase their speed of building here to accommodate the growth that's needed in Davis County. Okay. Oh, sorry, was that a comment?
Antelope Island.
There you go.
Hey,
It's school until the bucks come out.
Right.
go out there.
We've already talked about inventory because the inventory going up. There's some people arguing what a healthy amount of inventory is. The federal government like to say 6 months inventory is healthy. That's scary to me. Like for me, if you're at 3 months inventory, that's like, I like that. There's still a hustler's market. Sellers are doing good. Buyers are doing good. Things are moving at a pretty good pace. We're pushing on 4 months inventory in some seg markets. And so watching what's going to happen here could trigger some things to happen in the market. Either prices come down, buyers to pull out, sellers to stop coming on the market. I'm watching this close because to me, we're starting to push too high of inventory in some of these seg markets. Big piece of this is what's going on with mortgage rates and how does this play? Because mortgage rates have the ability to change at a faster pace than the other two elements of affordability, which are income and home prices. So those things are gonna change at a slower pace than what will happen in mortgage rates. So Tommy, our partner in Unity Home Loans, several of you in this room are partners with us and owners in the company Unity Home Loans with us. If you're not, we would love to talk to you about an ownership opportunity to help offset some of your diminished commission opportunities. And regardless of whether you become a partner or not, Tommy's an incredible lender, been here for a while, in the industry, crushing it, and proud to call him a friend too. But Tommy, take it away. Talk to us about mortgage over the next couple of
Yeah,
minutes.
real quick, I'll just go through two quick slides. That one. So Barry Habib, mortgage,
That's just a cool name.
MBS Highway. He talked about the October effect. So we look for trends, right, in the market. So this is a chart of the 10-year treasury from 2022 to 2023. This is the start of October. As the 10-year treasury goes up, mortgage rates go up as well. So we've seen the same trend happen this year in 2024. So the same trend has happened in 22, 23, and now in 24. So the Fed dropped half rate. What happened to rates since then? Anybody know? Rates have come back up. Rates have come back up. So why? We've got a jobs report that came in higher. BLS has been falsifying numbers for the last couple of months. They revise them 30 days later. So I don't know why they give a lot of weight to that, but then the CPI inflation still causing some issues, right, in the market. So after that, we've seen a nice following with rates, November and December. We are hoping that that is the trend again this year. So I am cautiously optimistic that that'll happen, but this is a MBS 30-year at 5.5. This is what's happened with rates since the Fed dropped their half point. So we have seen a sharp decline in mortgage-backed securities. That is an inverse relationship with rates. So rates have gone up since then. So I just wanted to read something real quick to you guys. And then obviously just talk about that real quick. So when the Fed, make sure you're educating your customers. The Fed is not cutting mortgage rates or longer term rates for that matter. They're cutting the Fed funds rate, which is an overnight rate that banks use to lend to one another, essentially an ultra short-term rate. When the Feds cut, certain rates are directly impacted. Money market accounts, short-term treasuries, credit cards, car loans, personal loans, small business loans, to name a few. But long-term rates can be indirectly impacted. For instance, many investors took advantage of a 5% money market investment instead of keeping money in cash. But when the Fed cuts, those rates are immediately impacted. Some investors may begin to buy duration for protection in the bond market, meaning instead of getting 4.5 in the money market account, they could move lower as the Fed cuts rates. They could buy a 10-year treasury yielding 4.18%. So instead of going short-term at 4.5, they're going to say, okay, I can get 10 years at 4.18. I'm going to protect that investment. So money starts flowing into the 10-year treasury. What will that do for interest rates? That'll help them to go lower, right? As money goes into the treasury, that'll go down and rates will come down as well. So it's guaranteed for the next 10 years. It says if this occurs, the increase in demand for the 10-year treasury will cause the yield to move lower. Additionally, the main driver of mortgage rates will be inflation in the job market. So we're seeing, the BLS jobs report has had, like I said, the issues they have. They put these numbers out really high. They revise them 30 days later, showing that there are weaknesses in the economy. So if everything goes to plan, we should see rates decrease through the end of the year. The Fed's still planning on a November and December rate cut at a quarter each. So that should be another half point by the end of the year. So we are cautiously optimistic that that'll happen. Obviously, we got the election happening in November, a lot of stuff happening. So as long as stuff stays on task, we can hopefully see a rebound at the end of the year, which should help things. I'm seeing an increase in business, increase in refi opportunities happen as well as rates come down. So hopefully that'll help you guys to see some more buyers out there in the market, etc.
So Tommy, if these guys are out having conversations with buyers who are obviously drawing some conclusions based on what they're hearing in the news, like what advice would you give them on how to respond to the question of what are rates going to do for the rest of the year? Is that at what point do you want to get involved in the conversation? What questions should they be asking to bridge that gap so you guys are showing up as partners?
I think long-term, you got to talk about these items. You've got to be a pro at that. You've got to talk about appreciation in Utah, how buying a house is a great idea, no matter what. If you want to wait it out, it could mean higher prices in the future. It could mean lower rates, it could mean higher rates. The great thing is we do a free refinance for any of your clients in the first 5 years. So if we can get them in the house now, rates go down, we're gonna take care of them.
Wait, what? Free refi for first 5 years? Takes the risk away, right? Rates go up, they're golden, rates go down, it's a no cost refi.
Yep, no cost refi, meaning we waive all our lender fees for them. So get in now, get into the house pricing now as they can before this continues to happen, which means prices are gonna continue to go up.
One thing that I think is conversation too, obviously, pulling the experts and have the conversations with the support of your lending partner. And I think that it's important that you check your mindset right now around purchasing power and what that looks like. Cause I've had a lot of conversations with agents who are saying things like, they're crazy, I would never give up that rate. Or why would you want to move right now? And if that's your mindset, you're projecting that on your clients, there's a lot of reasons people are moving right now. And it may not even necessarily, their hesitation, you might think it's around rates, but you're not asking enough questions to really dive into what it's actually about. So make sure you're taking the time to understand your client's needs and you're having that conversation in conjunction with the rate conversation. Because they didn't just say they want to move for no reason. And then they were like, oh no, rates are too high, I'm not going to do it. There was something that sparked them wanting to move and the motivation behind them moving. And if you're not getting to the bottom of that, there's always a way to find the affordability factor, right? Like you can find it, there's ways. Don't get so stuck on that. Make sure you're having an intelligent conversation about their needs and what that looks like. And the reality is like everything's indicating that prices in Utah are not gonna drop through the roof tomorrow or drop through the floor tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right? So I just think it's important to have that conversation in conjunction with, if they're saying to you rates are too high, you need to dig deeper. It's really about what their affordability is.
Which comes back to where we started today with skill set. If you don't know how to have that conversation, like even if it is crazy for me personally to make a move, if they come say, oh man, it would be crazy for me to change rates. The skill set is to ask the question of like, well, it may or may not be. Can I ask some follow-up questions to you in regards to that? Like let's make the decision for 10 years from now version of you versus today's version of you. Which one's going to serve that version of you better? Let's work it backwards. Because if you also take the claim of like, you're wrong, it should be this, they're also going to fight that. If you jump on board with them, you're going to solidify what they already believe. But by coming at it neutral and saying, hey, that may or may not be true, let's look at the data. Let's look at the statistics on it and determine together whether that's true or not. Okay.
But yeah, find out their why, be the specialist. We're still doing a lot of tricks to trade to get rates and payments where people need it. If it's buying down rate, temporary buy downs, permanent buy downs, all these different things can help people get where they need to be. So thank you.
Yeah.
One quick question.
Yeah.
Based on your forecast and the upcoming Fed rate cuts, strategically, does it make sense for clients to look at buy downs, or does it make sense for them to do something else if we're looking at likely lower rates?
I personally like temporary buy downs because it gets people temporary lower payments for the first year, and that money's not lost. Meaning if you refinance before the temporary buy down runs out, that money's refunded back to the borrower. Whereas a permanent buy down, that is just set to get your rate lower initially. If you refi, that money can be lost, right? So that's my personal belief there. If you can get that money back to the consumer, that's going to be in their best interest. So that's what I say. And then obviously sell them on that free refinance and try to get them into the house.
Speaking of refinances, what percentage of applications are coming in right now are refis?
Over half, 50, over 50% are.
Does that surprise anybody?
No.
People need to save money, yeah.
Where people are equity rich, but their spending habits aren't keeping up with them. So this is part of the conversation. Again, it may not result in an immediate sell for you, but you could still be a solution for your clients by asking them if the questions, and it might be a refinance is the right move for them. It's interesting to look at this. 76% of mortgages have a rate of 5% or less. But any of your clients that bought over the last couple of years, there's a chance that a refi could be a good move for them. Okay. Thanks, Tommy.
Thank you.
Let's touch on a couple other things because my time is running short. Affordability, we talked about in Utah, we're still an unaffordable market. I'm really hesitant for you to portray we're an unaffordable market because buyers are still buying because it makes sense for them. It is affordable to them. Where if you look at it across the board, we're measured as an unaffordable market, but there's still plenty of people that it is affordable to do and makes sense for them. You can see across the country, we're bouncing right at that 100 mark, which is exactly where a perfectly affordable market. So from a Fed standpoint, they're looking at that number, not what's going on in Utah, which we're sitting closer to 80. We were at 74 and we're gotten better at 80. As we continue to see interest rates get better, incomes go up, we'll continue to get back and balance somewhere at 100 at some point. He doesn't like that. This was just, I thought this was pretty interesting. Who owns all the single family rentals? One of the big things Kamala is talking about is one of her policy points is penalizing any professional investors that have over a certain amount of units. They'll be taxed differently versus the mom and pop investors. But of the single family homes out there, 1 to 9 are what they consider to be a mom and pop investor. 80% of all rental properties are owned by mom and pop investors. So this again is interesting to start looking at it. Tommy brought up some of the things of looking at like money market accounts, bonds, things like that. We're going to see some of these investors who have rode the wave up, these mom and pop investors, when they see the prices stagnate or prices go down, they're going to liquidate some of their single family rentals. Oh, sorry, I thought that was a hand going. Ken.
Yeah, so there's a bill that's being kicked around on Capitol Hill in appropriations for February for the next legislative session that talks about prohibiting national companies that buy single family residential from being able to buy properties in the state of Utah. Because these companies are coming in, buying up single family and then renting them, taking them out of the purchase pool, which we all make our money on. And so just be aware that that's probably something that we're going to be asked to support and give our opinions on.
I have a question. How do they decide like who's national and who's not? Like, are they
Registered nationally or registered locally? And it's gonna be a volume thing, it's gonna be based, I don't know, I haven't seen the bill particularly, but it's gonna be based on a number of units that they've purchased in the last year. And whether their funds come from outside the state of Utah or inside the state of Utah.
And they're looking at it from a foreign standpoint too, like how much money outside the US is coming into the US. And the number of units. It's interesting to look at, because I think the last statistic I saw was over the last several years, about 18% of transactions in the state of Utah were these foreign or professional investors like a BlackRock that coming in to buy it.
And I think we should support that personally.
That makes sense. I just wonder what's going to stop them from creating smaller and owning. I think there's LLCs and just start purchasing through somebody.
I don't know.
We'll buy it sometime.
Let's keep moving here. One of the interesting things that I've seen is, you guys know I play a lot in the investment space with single family homes. We've seen a ridiculous increase on rents over the last several years, and now they're finally softening. And in some markets, significantly softening, which some investors are panicking about. But if you look at it from the grand scheme of things, it's really getting rents back in check of where they should be, which I think is interesting because could affect buyers choosing to rent versus buy. Because over the last several years, if they're paying a lot in rent, they might just be like, that's a ridiculous amount to be paying in rent. It matches the mortgage payment. We might see that offset a little bit. Historically, what we've seen is rents being a little bit less than mortgage payments. We might see it go there. Tommy.
That's a huge issue with inflation right now, is the shelter costs, and as they come down, that'll help inflation to come down as well.
Yep, great point. GDP, again, they've been trying to get our GDP to slow down. People talk about a recession or a soft recession. You can see we've continued to have positive GDP. The official results of Q3 aren't out yet, but they're projecting it to be at a 3.4, so an even higher GDP for last quarter. Which again shows that we're a strong economy, unemployment's in check, all these things. I'm going fast through this. One thing I want to point this out because I hear people say, oh, deflation is happening. Deflation is not happening. Disinflation is happening. It's important for us to understand the difference. Deflation would mean that we're dropping below this line, meaning things are getting cheaper. The rate at which they're going up is slowed down. That's disinflation, because their goal is to keep inflation somewhere around 2%. They're projecting that we're going to land somewhere around 2.7%. Now, if you look into segment of different commodities, some of them are experiencing deflation. So there's some markets and some seg markets even within Utah that there is some deflation going on in homes. But for the most part, it's just disinflation, the rate at which it's increasing. This is interesting to look at as what areas are falling prices the most. Smartphones have gone down 10%, used cars and trucks have gone down 10%, yada, yada, yada. You can see what's not on here is real estate. Real estate as a whole has not diminished in value. It's just slowed down in its increase. I'll include these graphs out for you to look at because there's one more quick exercise I want to go through as we wrap up. This one that's really concerning to me is the revolving consumer debt. Consumer debt is the highest it's ever been. These are car loans, credit card loans, student loans, or all types of consumer debt. This is the highest it's ever been. And the way our world is set up, it's promoting more and more for the younger generation to borrow, thinking they are going to pay it down off long term. To me, this is a massive problem that could affect affordability and people's ability to buy a home. Particularly, the way they measure affordability is they say 30% of your income should be exactly what it takes to maintain a home at today's rates and today's purchase price. Well, the younger consumer to get into in Utah may need to increase that budget to like 35 or 40%, meaning they can't have these other payments lingering over their heads because that will kill them from a cost standpoint of maintaining a lifestyle. So this makes me concerned about consumer debt.
Do you have that broken down like per person? Like how much is per person?
I know exactly in this room how much consumer debt each person is carrying. I don't know what that is per person across the country. It would be interesting to look at though.
I wanted to say, I don't know if everybody knows, but I think Ron and Corey told me, so Ogden is trying, you know how they build brand new homes, right? And so they built some that automatically have ADU units in it, help offset that for first time home buyers. And I believe they're all in the mid 400,000s. So if you have clients that are open to, you know, having a roommate or trying to offset, that's a really, really good idea.
Yeah.
So
I think that we're gonna see more stuff like that come to the table. Both parties, both Democratic and Republican presidential candidates are putting proposals on the table of incentivizing. They both agree this is the problem. They have different strategies on how to address it, but both parties have some things on the table of how to promote and incentivize builders to create more affordable housing in markets. So we can see that, but it will take a minute.
Yeah,
It's gotta go through the process of getting the bill. It's gotta be approved, then it's gotta be the builders lining up. So it could be years before we see a real promotion, but both of them know it's an issue. Dane.
City properties. Even though there's an proven track record.
I think you have to have a signed agreement and a deposit, and going into that, I know they're difficult to do, but I've heard of that. I think it's really.
And they didn't have the same agreement on it. First deposit. It's like based on like
That's good.
Okay, we'll have a side conversation on this. I want to wrap up because I want to respect your guys' time. We talked about consumer debt. This, to me, we've got a horrible example of this. Federal debt's very, very high. One of the things I'm concerned about is both parties, the proposals they're putting on the table, as what they're putting out there to get elected. Both of them increase federal debt beyond where it's at. Neither of them have a game plan to diminish federal debt, which is concerning to me. Because at some point, this has got to be addressed. So I've got some concern around that. Annual savings rate is gone up a little bit, but it's very, very low to where it is. Before we wrap up, I want to go back to this conversation for 1 second. So as we've talked about statistics and we've thought about your business, I'm curious if you guys could share with me, from an agent standpoint, as an agent inside of your business, what are some of the biggest obstacles you feel like you're facing right now in your business? You guys are all making money.
Having people willing to have the harder conversations, like opening up, saying why they're not gonna make it. Like, I know you want to move. Why don't you just talk to me about it?
So clients opening up about their real needs. Okay. What other issues? What are the real business? Yeah, please.
saying they had a bad experience.
So I'd even move that back one to say, seller strategy, like the strategies for sellers. Because what I'm hearing you say, and that is, you've got sellers that want to sell, they're just not loving the conditions of the offers coming in to work for what they want to build. Okay, love that. What else you see it?
I can talk about two. We lost two listings because we were very honest about, where the market was. Another agent came in and told them it was higher and they went with that agent. So, building your skill set more to show that, it is where it is.
Awesome. I think that's a huge one, is we've got to get in conversation with more people, because there's gonna be people that don't want to listen to the advice you're giving. Which means you could have done the same thing that other agent did and been like, yeah, okay, we'll list it at a higher price. But then it's costing you money and time and reputation to sit on a listing that doesn't sell, when you could have used that time and energy to go have new conversations with new people. To me, this is one of the biggest issues we're having as agents, is we're not having enough conversations. So then it becomes a question of saying, for any one of these, what I'd encourage you to say is like, well, what skill set am I missing to overcome that obstacle better? For seller, like for contingencies and seller strategies, is this a better conversation at the listing consultation of what to expect than having some clear strategies and expectations around it? Maybe. It's for a client opening up. Is this a skill set on how to ask better questions? Or is this a skill set of showing more information to get them to a different spot so they understand what their options are? Maybe there's a skill set around that. Same thing with number of conversations. If you don't have enough conversations, you've got a lead generation problem. Maybe you're great at the conversation, but you're not having enough of them. Then I'd go into habit, saying, well, what habit is keeping me from doing this? Right? The habit is, oh, I've done my listing consultation the exact same for the last 10 years. Well, you might need to add a new sheet in your listing consultation as a reminder to you to say, oh yeah, I gotta have this conversation. Yeah, something I like, when I create new habits, I always think triggers. So I'm a very habitual person. It's like, what would trigger me to do that in this habit that I already have, right? That's why they say put your floss right next to your toothbrush. Is there a system in place? What about as a CEO? What are the biggest obstacles you're facing as the owner of your business right now? How's your net income? Okay, so this is money management. Like if I dug into, would you be proud if I dug into your P&L right now and asked you questions to say, hey, I see this expenditure line. What is your ROI on this strategy? Can you tell me that? Or do you know it? So these are questions to start asking the question. Too often we get overwhelmed with this that we forget to ask this question. And then this one, if someone wants to share, they can. But lastly is, again, don't spend all of your time and energy being a better business person. Remember to spend some of your time being a better human. This for me, this a big one for me is like I feel like by the time I finally figured out how to be a great dad to little kids, my kids aren't little anymore. So like a big focus for me right now is how do I be a better parent to adult kids? Like, how do I be the dad they need me to be? Because for some reason, my teenage girls don't want me to like play dress up with them. So this whole idea is like, how do I evolve as a better dad for my kids at the stage they're at now? If you think about it, it's a skill set. Like at home, you might hear me use the term low key at home, which you'll never hear me say low key in a business situation. But if I'm going to connect with my kids differently, I got to speak the way they speak. Habits. Well, I've had to shift some of my habits because my kids stay up a little bit later. That tends to be the time they be a little bit more vulnerable and talk. So I've had to shift some of my habits where I'm a little bit more available to this at this time. Can I create a system around it? Does my calendar reflect it? So whatever the point I'm making with this, and hopefully you guys know this, with the whole premise of the whole enchilada on my podcast is this idea of I want to live an elevated life across multiple platforms, not just in business. I want the same thing for you. And it's the same principles to be a great business person as it is to be a great human being. If you want to be like I do, a better dad, it's going back, it's the same business, the same principles I use to build a business of saying, in the end, what does that look like for me? If I had to define what that looked like, now let me work it backwards to what are the habits of that person? What is the skill set of that person? Now, does my calendar and my skill set reflect that? Does my personal growth plan put me on a pathway to become that version of a dad my kids need me to be right now? So I want to leave you with that thought. Any other last questions or thoughts as a group before we wrap up? Bradley, there's one more slide hidden here. Were you on the leadership slide? Will you hide that one? I think it's right. Oh. It's gone. Okay, so I'll get it out to you. I am rolling out a leadership course to my nationwide community right now. Anyone inside of our brokerage and our family, it's free for you. We'll get you a code for that. However, one of the things I want to encourage everyone's growth plan for, and I'll talk about this at Business Planning Clinic as well, is I feel like all of us need to elevate our leadership, self-leadership, leading other people in the trenches, and then growing leaders is kind of the pathway that we're going to talk about. It's a 4-week conversation around leadership. And I'd love for you guys to join me for that. It's going to be in January. And again, because you're a part of our world, it's free to you guys. We'll get you the QR code out for that.
Thank you.
Questions, comments for me before we wrap up?
Thanks, Mark.
You're welcome.
Thank
Appreciate it. We got a sponsor. Moving and logistics.
Yeah, that's me.
That's
Margaret,
you.
right?
Yeah, come on up.
Rebecca Roberts, it's nice to meet you.
Rebecca, nice to meet you.
Nice
Thank
to
you for
see
being here.
Collection of realtors here, and I'm gonna pick up right where you left off.
Do it.
I'm gonna help every single one of you in this room elevate yourselves in your business and being a realtor. I'm gonna help you elevate your clients in making the best decisions that they possibly can. And I'm gonna help you in your personal life, elevate yourself as well. My company is WP Moving and Logistics. We are a white glove warehousing, relocation, and moving company. We are the only one that's in Utah. We've been in business for over 30 years. If you scan this QR code, it's going to take you right to my website. So you're going to know exactly who I am. I have a scenario to pose to all of you. Let's say you sell a house and your client has an extra large collection of cars. They also have a very large collection of wine that needs to be climate controlled. They've got art that they would like to have properly packaged. They've got art that needs to be shipped in a climate controlled container. They'd like to order some new furniture so that they can store it in a warehouse and then have a professional come and professionally install those pieces of furniture. Who would you call? Wrong. It's all WP Moving logo. It's on the board here. Who would you call? WP Moving. Very nice. That's what we do. We are one of 9 companies in the United States that actually has our own private transportation brokerage firm within our company. So you could have your client call me or my sister, who I own the company with. We're 100% female owned. And we would arrange for your client to have their items shipped from here to wherever they wanted to go. It could be Connecticut, it could be New York, it could be Scotland, it could be Mexico, in their own private, fully dedicated truck. We have trucks from a small Sprinter van all the way up to a fleet of 153-foot semis if you would like. We'll get their items wherever they need to go. I will show up on the other end, so there's full transparency within our company. We'll unpack it, we'll put it away, make the bed, I'll cook you dinner, put your slippers out, hang up the artwork, put the pool table together, and make sure your car is safely in the garage. Sound like something you could use that would elevate you as a realtor, that could possibly elevate your life if you were moving, and you can, in good faith, recommend our company to your clients. Like I said, we're only one of 9 companies in the US that are recognized. Our headquarters are in Park City. We have warehouses all over the US. We're backed by Gephardt. We're backed by the Better Business Bureau, 100% female owned. We are the relocation company for Goldman Sachs. And we've been in business for over 30 years. So we know what we're doing. Do you have questions for me? Very quiet, great. Get up and do something. What do you want?
Surprising.
Oh, that's dangerous. Yeah. So you can hang on to that QR code, share it with your clients, with your whomever. It'll take you right to our website. And that's all I have to say on that, unless you guys have more questions for me. Thank you. Oh, you're welcome. There's lunch up there that we brought, so help yourself. Sandwiches, chips, cookies, whatever you would like. And I'll be right over here by the table, so if you have your further questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you. Thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
There's a lovely picture of Marcus
Oh.
and leadership. There it is. You're all here.
Yeah. I love that. A little cheer from our wow, Mark. Anybody? Yeah.
I found it, sorry.
Sorry, thank you. We'll get it out for the time.
Okay.
Very good. Look how everybody is. Good. Better go.
The 25th, 26th, 25th.
Get started anyway. Start one.
It's good. You wanted to start a new business?
Yeah.
So far.
Like I just said it in there. Many people will read it.
I was waiting for it to bounce back.
I'm the one.
I have diabetes, so it's like.
We're gonna keep it.
That's far more.
Halloween, I learned that I started with Dutch labor, you could do the Halloween.
It's your daughter.
You could do.
Well, good to see you. It's good to see you. Yeah. It's different. And it's different. The big thing is Arizona changes and sign.
You don't need to confirm, you're nice to do it. Jane Helmet, what do you do like? Oh, I need to do.
Yeah.
That is good. So when are we doing? Maybe we'll check on my.
I know, we got income already, have like all the California. And then you can. Yeah, it's going that way. Coming, going cash valley. All right, let's get it, everybody.
It's fine. Oh, yeah. I mean, I've literally just started doing.
Of everything.
In the last.
Good to see you.
Third thing.
Yeah.
is the,
It's like 2 months. Like, I feel like.
Are you leaving? Are you leaving?
I'm just. Yes.
It's right back.
Well, I know anything. I get all excited, you know, all of those things that like that out.
Don't really go back there.
How are you? I got you.
Oh, speaking of things. Here. Yeah, all right. Friday. 3 o'clock.
We're doing a, like,
Yeah.
maybe he wants to go. to court.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Definitely.
Even is our cage?
No, should be.
And so it was like, oh, they need. But.
I might.
Everybody thought so. Yeah.
The goal.
But
Oh,
was
it's just.
not like.
Good, how are you? I do people. Oh, really?
About 7:15.
Oh, really?
Well, I.
Oh, that's awesome.
But like, other than that, I'm gonna love it. I might go back in,
Oh,
but just because I'm. And everything. Well, right about the hearing, but our team operations are, yeah, and yeah, are. So, if I'm gonna figure it was not under my plan right now. I'm gonna tell your story.
A lot of it was.
I was like, I was not sure to be that time, like, I was like, all this.
I am the meat. Hopefully more.
Yeah, that'd be sweet.
I think that's. What I think.
Hopefully. I know, if I say that, it's a big camera. Well. I know.
Oh, yeah.
To be fair,
Oh, that's really small.
Yeah, like.
we're. The tighter the better. Okay, let me go. I love you.
Yeah.
Good to see you too. Okay.
I'm like, but also like.
Good or bad?
Great.
People are like so anti.
Right.
Like, always like, I won't eat meat, but.
Yeah, wagon.
Oh.
Yes, exactly. Bye, guys.
Yeah.
Good evening, Angie. And then.
We need to start having it where the.
It's easy.
Yeah.
Well, I want to know that if I could stop, I don't know. Not anything like. There's more people, there's more.
How are things going? How about you? I haven't seen you in a while. Yeah.
The reason we're doing all that. We did get a lead. I got all their.
This fun. We did double, we did like. 3 bills. Super nice, or like, yeah, they're.
Cause they don't understand, like, different.
I don't have that.
We got that.
I think it would be perfect for Haley. It's 2.23 acres. And the house is a bonus.
Right, so there's
So,
like,
yeah.
you know, second back, right, like.
Yeah.
No, Eric and I drove up to.
Oh, you did, uh-huh.
You know, they're like, no.
I
I don't think that this property owns it. I think that's part of you. Really?
123, 2 acres.
Very very awkward, there's like no, now, sorry, right, yeah. And, it's up in the middle of nowhere. With a bunch of other little houses like this. And campers.
Maybe. You went there a long time.
Yeah, there's
I
something.
remember.
No, it's not him. It all is. But also. And like, if you look up, you're like, okay. Pretty much, right? Like.
We want to be off, right?
Oh, that's. Well. Not feeling how to go.
Couldn't remember who you were. So, you guys.
I need to, figure out. When you guys.
Visual list.
That's not like. Make like.
Well, mine might.
Yeah.
One number you. One of them is.
I don't know. Yeah, the word, never. So that now. I'm going to, I like my body, like. Like,
Can be a while. Better.
Yeah, like they were saying.
Like, and I really thought it was. Yeah. You know.
Such a shy, and she's
Yeah, no, but really,
I don't know why, but I think I know why.
like. Right, I had done this.
So they went.
Yeah, they didn't remember that it.
She's like, Monica,
I mean, which one are you?
I'm Rebecca, my sister's stuff. Don't you think we should get in with, Eden?
I think for it.
You got me somebody, two people to do. A girl, a designer actually, her name's Carrie Bressingham, and design, you know? No, but if you did, you have to go through the guy. Yeah, yeah. I was getting to give her Heidi and Heidi and Jennifer. We have a part of our company, we have a fully dedicated food part of our company. Yes, they, that's your job, because I was serious when we say that when we move people, I kind of like, people are packing your cupboard, so I know what you like to eat, what you like to drink, and what you probably want for dinner. So then we put the order in for them, so when they get there, everything is done, their closets all set up, so there's not for the bag, there's the whole nine.
You just go on.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You didn't take my number? And you thank you. So, MITAGLP. And then, number is 801.
Yeah, we talked.
603 2229. And then the other one, he's the main broker on that place. And now for luxury.
Yeah.
You're happening, right?
I mean, we sound alike, so the people are looking at us, they're don't use. Well, thank you very much. It was nice to meet both of you. Hopefully we can do some good. And I feel fun.
So resume, I think, is getting ready. I want to. And then she's getting us ready for the work today, so for.
We don't.
Have it done.
And like, right? But,
I asked Saturday and Monday, what did you guys do?
took it like that next semester, and I came back, and it. And we are really well at it. Right, and it was like, I learned, you know,
You know. I got her.
Yeah, I tried your name, didn't work. Nothing works on me though. Maybe I'm the pillar of evolution, that I don't know, something like that. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that one. Yeah, I don't need it. I probably do.
Nobody can go 100 miles out all the time. They're not, have a great time.
I have,
And maybe.
I got good at jumping there.
I just.
Make that call.
How would your flow get in?
And I didn't tell you.
You ever flown in that?
I have put my. Setting it. He doesn't. Ready.
Yeah, I did that in now. They were good friends. I know.
I'm making it out harassing with the strategy. She all.
Then Dylan had a good competition. Dylan is. Dylan.
Or you're like, you know, yeah, I just.
One is cuter than the other, but not like the face, this one is just friendly, and the other one is just so shy. Dylan, so we helped Dylan, by the way. Because he didn't put money on the picture, we own the picture for. But where did so he used that for his.
It's gonna be wild after the election, what happens?
No. Yeah, this one.
They can't execute it. And now those.
Well, Sean, I'm talking about that, I think they just wanna see what shock waves.
Accelerated, but then.
It could be whoever is
The rest of
elected, there's
those
gonna be
things
some
don't.
blowback of some kind.
I know, on the local level, like, you know,
Yeah.
how does
Hey, Dylan,
you
you?
president of the United States?
They have a second. I'm sure. I know you're not. No, Mark Smith. His reason I'm telling me that because they can find outside.
Yeah, because then you can get it to another. Yeah, and like, and then. Well, that's why I kind of remember.
The generator April.
You know, it's
So
not.
that means you're gonna find me a buyer before December.
Yeah, for me.
I think I'm like from my.
I like that, and also I know that we don't have like that type of friendship, right? But like.
Oh, yeah,
I
really?
don't know, you're comfortable, right, with connecting with all
So your guy is coming in January, so if and if whatever, if we have him showing, is he like gonna be working?
Well, I think I've learned politics.
And also, I
We
want to
only think.
if like you're not playing for your life, like I'm right, yeah, I'm like.
Mentally in something that is out of your.
Let's play, yeah.
Right, it does not, whoever's elected is not gonna change the relationship. It's not gonna change how I live.
Okay, well, no, but yeah, let's hope, because Michael's like, hey, you need to be with
Dictate.
you, path in the original. Looking for, but even if it is when you consider, you know, like, even if it's Tuesday, but we'll. Yeah. Not, you know, like. Oh, yeah, that's what we've done. I think I did it in the past with you, where it was more fun.
Just to give you that.
Okay. Okay, cool. Perfect. Were you able to get all the pictures and everything is done? It's a pleasure.
Have your.
Courtesy and love, yeah.
You can't do that.
How much do you purchase from each and one? Oh, yeah, how much do you charge? I think Mike is happy because.
Or religion.
That's it, too. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, at the end, yeah. Got my pictures ready. What do you do?
And not.
And you don't know maybe because you don't know.
Like I know.
And I told you, no. I think he's been dragging his feet because.
And then put it like that. Yeah.
And that's original.
He told me to.
Okay, if I, now, if I have, if you have a renter, I'll bring you this, and then that. Because if you still. Oh, I'm not recommending him and you don't, I'm not.
I did, I was probably more.
Like we're getting a good service. So
Just.
I'm not excited. Yeah.
All that stuff.
Anything.
Really?
You know what I mean?
Anytime you want to destroy your peace of mind, turn it on. It will always be there.
At the time you're feeling particularly.
Is that how you are?
I know.
I don't know.
You want the distraction, emotional stability.
Yeah.
And maybe not like the value, but something because date night, you work so much, blah, blah, blah. Oh, you're going.
No, no.
No, but I would say. So everything I have to tell you, no, no. I need to answer this. Let's answer this. I thought he was gonna end the show, and then.
No, I was down on the one thing. Yeah.
Oh my God, what?
But I wasn't.
Okay.
It was such a.
Unfortunately, I have not. I have hired a job manager for already for an office. My daughter is getting married next weekend, so we'll be tied up for a few weeks. Be back. The engagement. He feels he could be spending, spending, spending. So, yeah, now. Conrad enjoyed it.
But in a good. Perfect. All of it. And then I think just. It was so weird. I was like, thinking here, that was so. But. Yeah. I guess so. Or like the. Yeah. I totally work. I love just. I'm not sure. Yeah. Yeah, it was great, and I've never been to. Oh, that was awesome. Well, you were on such a great program. I like. Like their sound can be. Yeah. Right, it makes sense. Yeah. No, I never been before. I only ever heard nightmare stories about, the exiting the parking lot. And when I like, we got out in 5 minutes.
29, the picture.
But then. It's so. Uh-huh. I'm excited for Thursday. Fair.
Little green, good morning, that's why I like this kind of thing. Like, I know. Oh, dear. Oh, the house. Super excited. Hey, Anita, we finished the meeting and I think we building. He did not set the renter and only end of January and April. And I worded very well. The conversation. But I didn't tell them yet. So the rest of the caveat is
he couldn't get it.
getting drained. And I believe with something.
And he
Give him like a gift card.
So. You read the book.
Oh, okay. How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good, sorry, I was saying hi to both of you.
But
Oh.
I just feel, no, I was thinking of you, Dalton, because you wrote this.
It's fine.
We could, like.
I'm a
we
weirdo.
find out,
Okay. There is like this.
You got this because you read the.
Right.
Okay. I didn't read the book. But you don't need to read it.
Living the dream.
We need to move it.
Where is your? Where are you? Did you open it?
You gotta plan to get.
They were switching.
More than 100.
Figure it out. I'm dead. Yeah, I just meet you. Well, yes.
Oh, man.
What are you doing? The one was still from a week.
Yeah.
So.
And you're.
Yeah. What do you do now? Okay.
38 plus.
Yeah.
And 38.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Do you know weight and loads? How many do we?
Yeah. Right.
Not even here today. Hi, you guys, loser. Hi, Phil.
So.
I know where he lives, me, go at his house. So eggs are really expensive. Not because they're in our fridge. That's what I know.
Unity closing.
Yeah. It's been great. Oh, yeah.
No, right now it's like, I think. Yeah, so thank you.
Gary's great, he'll take fantastic area, and if he doesn't, tell me, I'll look at his ass. All right. See you guys.
Get anything. For 1 second.
Yeah. Give me some minutes, we'll- 78. Sorry, I'm in the plan to try and decide, but.
Eight.
Get it together.
150. I won't mind.
Well, yeah, it's gonna be a touchdown.
You start over.
And, but, get things. Well.
Next time you come in, I'll have to wear.
Bradley or Lauren, Lauren.
Sorry.
Nice to meet you.
I was students for, I can circle back to you in a second.
Yeah, cool. Okay.
That's the Kamala Harris. Man.
No, it takes time. Girl, it takes time. Takes time, so we will come back. I should check on my daughter. Yeah, I should.
And really good. But, yeah. I wasn't sure how.
We're gonna. What exactly on this guy? So what if you? Feel the fire. Like,
Nope. You want to do that. You know.
okay, so then, second part. How's that? He told me. Like, when I say thing, he was like, he was broken. Call it broken. What?
Oh, yeah.
So, anyway,
Well, what did you call them, what did you say?
I just asked, like, see it. Like, it broke.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
like, literally.
Oh, okay, so he didn't leave your job.
Yeah, I didn't have a chance to even talk to her for it.
If you come up on the,
Like,
whatever. And that has promised.
Okay, so girl, we're rocking it.
I love it.
Let's do this.
Are we moving? Are we like touchdowning?
Yeah. I'm not into football, but I think Falcon said that he touched out.
Okay.
So,
We're gonna trust Dolly. Is that sure?
no, we were too. But they said they had 108 yards, and that's pretty easy to figure out.
Fair enough.
So yeah, we got into, we did all this. Well, there's a couple things that we didn't. Graduate Ignite, we didn't, but just this month.
Okay,
So what do we do?
they're
I
good.
love gifts, so I.
Okay. Plug
No,
you
but
back
how do
here
I-
and then on Tuesday, we're gonna celebrate you guys. I'm gonna, so you're gonna be now in this,
This will be.
this end zone. Yes, you're gonna go back to the beginning. Everyone else like.
Picking it, I'm not saying.
Oh, like this, did you have tape on the back?
No.
You might, I put a tape piece on the Bradley's desk. You know, where's our tape?
Usually it's the first.
I have tape up here. I have tape.
What if I buy this? She's so funny, this one. She doesn't have a pocket and she wants to buy a house. She's divorcing. Her husband is taking the
And
house.
then even
She can't even.
next week's when you guys announce. If they want over, you know, we can just move you farther. Yeah, there you go. Okay. I'll announce you got a touchdown.
But now she wants her mug and her gift card.
So I do have it.
We'll do it on Tuesday.
You have to do it.
I'm sorry, I know that's.
Pictures.
And are you logged in?
Are we doing pictures? She's like, oh, I have property on there.
Okay. Okay, I was like, Sean literally just chatted with me, like, I need to verify this and get it ready to go for. So. Yeah, you know, I gotta like double check that Dalton is actually on the 55-yard.
I was about to cheat because I love what he wrote here and like, no, you need to read the book, right? Oh, I'm all about Audible. Does this book exist on Audible?
It sure does.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm
Perfect.
new to this. I just got converted.
You new to Audible niche?
Yeah, I know, sorry.
Did you drive?
I know, but
she's
you
on
know
the
what,
phone
I was
when
just
she
trying to
drives.
tell her, I don't, and you know what, it's actually a blessing, this Audible, because I don't text anymore. Yeah,
I love Audible and you have a longer drive than me.
and it's just, yeah, so I'm new to this thing. Somebody said they give me a gift on Audible, but I'm not finding it.
Oh, I
This
don't
guy.
know.
Yeah,
No idea how that works.
it's fine, I'll see him at school, but the book, so.
It's called the Full Feed, so FULL.
So it's an agent, please check, not all.
And I buy with one credit.
They don't know how long it is.
Yeah, you can buy credits, and some books. are more credit.
Yeah, like this one, you can also buy for $15 or $14 on there.
So what do I do? Allison?
Yeah,
Can I
Allison,
ask you a
I'm not an
question?
Audible girl.
Can I ask you a question? So now, the book's $13, but do I buy for $13.96 or do I buy?
I'm gonna use
Or
this
the
right.
drive, like, if you have something, because you're Audible, and you can use it credit. Oh, yeah, so you have one credit available. But I wouldn't. Are you gonna do other books on Audible? This is a cheaper book. Sometimes books on Audible are like $30. I use my credits for the more expensive books.
So to recap what you just said, if there's a book that I want that is $30, might as well use the credit and it can be one credit for $50 and just buy this on a normal. price.
Thank you.